Hey guys, it's Shara from Woodshop Diaries and welcome back to my pantry. I feel like I've been talking about this pantry renovation for months, but we actually didn't start any work in here until about the week of Thanksgiving, which I guess at this point was still 2 months ago. So let's do a quick recap. So here's the pantry before. Clearly not the most efficient storage, but my biggest irritant was actually the door placement. It made 2 of the walls practically useless for storage, but it also required you to have to like zigzag into it. Super annoying. So a couple videos ago, I shared part of the renovation where we moved the doorway, did some drywall work, and emptied this out. The last time we were all here together, this was a clean, blank slate ready for cabinets. It's come a long way, but I'm still not finished. Truth be told, I have been purposely taking my time with this because I'm just not 100% sure what I want. But in the meantime, I wanted to share a quick update on what I've done so far and what's left to do before I press pause on this project and move on to doing some unrelated ones. That said, if you're ready to dive in, let's go. The first thing I needed to do here was move in the cabinets. Some of these I had already made, like this corner cabinet that you may recognize from a previous video. Then I moved in this huge pantry cabinet that you might also recognize from a previous video. I installed the tall cabinet by securing it to the wall studs, but I didn't install the corner cabinet just yet. The rest of the cabinets I had not made yet, so I headed back to the shop to get to work. In full transparency, several weeks passed between installing the pantry cabinet and building the next cabinet because I had other projects to work on, but eventually I did get back to the pantry. So next, I needed a simple shelf to go on the right side of the pantry, specifically for housing my large kitchen appliances like the crock pot and the air fryer. This was super simple, so I didn't dedicate a full build video to it. Essentially, I just assembled the cabinet box from 3/4 inch plywood, then I drilled shelf pin holes up and down the sides so that I could add adjustable shelves wherever I needed. Then I just assembled a face frame to fit and then glued and nailed it onto the front. I edge banded the shelves and painted the face frame before moving it inside. Can't really see what's going on in here, but there's the shelf. There's no way I could film me actually screwing this into the wall, but you can see that I screwed it in there through the top back support into a wall stud. Next, I needed to build the cabinet that will surround the freezer. Now, normally I would have preferred to build this as a one-piece unit, but if I did that in this case, I wouldn't have had room to get it into the pantry door and then turn it upright with the other large pantry cabinet already in place. So in this case, I had to piece it together. This absolutely worked, but it just really wasn't ideal and it kind of made things more difficult than they should have been when it came time to install. But first, I made a deep but short cabinet box to go above the freezer. I made this about 2 inches wider than my freezer to give me some wiggle room when I add the side panels. I also made this cabinet box about 24 inches deep. This was, again, essentially just another cabinet box with a face frame. For the doors, I kept things simple and just cut some 1/2 inch plywood and glued 1/4 inch plywood strips onto the front. Then I edge banded them and set these and the cabinet box to the side. Now I needed to make 2 large panels to go on each side of this cabinet that will surround the freezer. So I cut these from 3/4 inch plywood and glued and nailed a 1x2 onto the front. Actually, again, full transparency, I mismeasured my space and I really didn't have room for a full 1x2, so I ended up making these face frame pieces about 1 inch wide instead of 1.5 inches. Anyway, after the glue had dried and everything was sanded, I painted everything before bringing it inside. Again, this would have been so much easier if it had been just all one piece, but it is what it is. I started by securing one of the large panels to the tall shelf cabinet first with a few screws. I apologize for the camera angle. It was really hard to get a good shot of most everything I was doing in here because the room is so small and I just didn't have anywhere to back the camera up far enough for you to be able to see what was happening. Then I brought the cabinet box in and set it on some scrap blocks on the freezer to get it in position. I secured the cabinet to the side panel through the face frame, then secured the cabinet to the wall studs through the back supports. Then I brought in the other side panel and secured it to the cabinet with screws through the face frame and the side panel kind of toward the back. Next, I recruited Danny to help me bring in the blind corner cabinet that I shared in my last video to go into this other corner next to the freezer. Once it was in place, I screwed it to the side panel, but I'll be honest, I didn't film it because this room was just too small to get the camera in anywhere that you could actually see what I was doing. To finish up this kind of freezer cabinet portion of the project, I installed the hinges onto the doors, but I actually forgot to film hanging the doors onto the cabinet. So here they are. Sorry about that. Now there are 2 empty spots left in the pantry, and for these, I wanted to make just 2 simple drawer cabinets to fill the space. These are literally just 2 base cabinets, just like I built in my base cabinet video that I shared last year, with one exception. Okay, so I've got 2 just very basic base cabinets. The only difference between this and my usual base cabinet is that when I attach the face frame, I attached it so that it's flush along the inside here, which means that the majority of the face frame overhangs the side, and you'll see why I did that when I get ready to install it. Also, since these are going to be drawer cabinets, doing that made it easier to install the slides. I just mounted them directly onto the side panels instead of having to use like a spacer block. Since these drawer cabinets are not going to be where the drawer front is like fully covering, you'll be able to see like inside the cabinet. This just allows me to not have to see those like not super pretty spacer blocks. There's several reasons why I did the face frame this way. I made a large one that will go in the back of the pantry and a smaller one that will go on this side. The smaller one has deeper drawers and the wider one has shallower drawers. Once these were painted, I moved them into the pantry. Now, another reason for building these so that the face frame was overhanging the outside is because if, for some reason, they didn't fit, this face frame can easily be trimmed down a little bit as needed. Once the cabinets were all in place, I leveled everything, shimmed where needed, and then I started securing them to the wall studs and to each other. All right, cabinets are secured. Then I could install the floor. In my last pantry update video, I mentioned that I removed the existing floor, and I wasn't really sure what I would put back in here. Ultimately, I just decided to relay the old flooring. I really wanted something different, but we decided to just wait and redo all of the floor at once whenever we get around to redoing our kitchen. And because I can't seem to do anything in any order that makes sense, at this point I came back and installed the drawers that I had already built for the last 2 cabinets. I made these fairly shallow intentionally because I just wanted them to feel kind of like a hybrid between a drawer and a pull-out shelf. I cut a basic spruce 1x12 down to make my drawer fronts, and I left them unfinished for now because I'm not 100% sure if I want to stain them, and if so, what color. As you can tell, I'm incredibly indecisive. So I feel like this is a good stopping point to kind of press pause and move on to something else for a while and just let this marinate in my brain for a little bit. I still need to install the toe kicks and the trim around the bottom and the baseboards. And I also need to add crown molding to the tops of the cabinets as well. Then I'll need to decide on and install the countertops and the backsplash, and then decide what I want to go like up here. Honestly, we don't have a lot of stuff. Half of my kitchen cabinets are empty, and the majority of these are empty, at least for the time being. So I'm just really debating on how I want to use this space because I don't really need it for storage. For now, this is a vast improvement over what it was just a couple of months ago, but I'm definitely ready to move on to something else for a while. So if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to follow along because I've got plenty more projects to come, both in and out of this pantry. We will revisit this pantry space eventually for the final reveal, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the update and the progress so far. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy building.